Good day, everyone. So, after learning about the Greek pantheons, now let's look at the Roman pantheons. So, in this discussion, we shall identify the major gods and goddesses of the Romans. So, I bet you're already familiar with some of them. Now, let's take a look at these particular planets in our solar system. So, does it ring a bell to you? Yes, it definitely does. So, our planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and even Pluto are all named after Roman gods because Roman deities became so well known and influential. Romans who were skilled astronomers gave the names of their gods to the planets they could see. So, the largest among the planets, as you can see, is called Jupiter because the Roman god Jupiter is considered to be the king of all gods. Mars is named to a planet because of its crimson color, diba? Tanaw ninyo, color red ang nagdominate sa Mars. And sometimes we associate this color for bravery, war, just like the god Mars. So by just knowing about this, we can say that the Roman mythological influence was great enough. But how did it happen? How come Romans were so powerful to influence such ideas? So, before we begin with the Roman pantheons and their counterparts, let's briefly dig into the early Roman history. Are you familiar with the Etruscans? So, the Etruscans were people who inhabited ancient Italy before the Romans. It is assumed that they had a highly developed culture and mythology. Eventually, the Romans conquered Etruscans in 27 BC, and when they did so, it is believed that they absorbed parts of their religion and mythology. So, the Greek culture wasn't the first one that Romans got influence into. In fact, even before they bumped into the Greeks, the Roman cultures were already influenced by the Etruscans and borrowed elements from their enemies such as temple designs, ang mga designs sa ilang temples, and also their religious rituals. Those are just examples of the things that they borrowed from the Etruscans. And as time goes by, as Romans continue to conquer the Mediterranean, they gradually come into contact with the Greeks. So at that time, Greek culture was perceived as the most refined and basically the supreme culture in the world. So at that time, Greek is already advanced. They are rather more developed and they have these knowledge that is much more improved, much upgraded than the other cultures. So Greek schools started tutoring Roman children. So luckily, um, they decided to tutor Roman children and they introduced them to the excellent educational system. However, the Romans were still aware that their religion was inferior to the Greek one. So even though nag-start na ang Greek og tulo sa mga Roman children, ilang culture ilan ang gistart og share dito sa Romans, still naka-feel ang Romans, or it's just a fact at that time that the Romans were still inferior and the Greek were still superior because of their very refined culture. So in an effort to upgrade their culture, they started to, number one, identify their gods to those of Greeks. So dinhi na nag-start, they started to adapt the gods of the Greeks, some of the gods, although not all gods of the Romans were borrowed from the Greeks. They also have their gods that originated from their culture, from the Romans. However, most of the gods are actually identified to those of the Greeks, from the Greeks. So the second one, they copied Greek literary models. So kung naay Homer ang Greek, so naasay Virgil ang Roman. So Virgil is a Roman poet, and kung si Homer ang magsuwat na tigsuwat og kanang mga stories, literary stories sa kanang sa Greek, si Virgil pod ang sa Romance. And the last one, they reinterpreted story. So kaning tulo ka process nga gihimo sa Romance, manis siya ang gitawag og interpretatio Graece. Even before the Romans were influenced by the Greek and Etruscan, the ancient Romans already believed in a polytheistic religion, which means they worship, they honor several gods, and this was ever developing as they adopted the gods and goddesses now from the Greek and Etruscans. So the early Roman religion was animistic, which means they believed that spirits inhabit everything around them. They believed that they were watched over by their ancestor spirits, and they have these household spirits where they call Capitoline Triad. And the first Capitoline Triad were Mars, the god of war, Quirinus, and Jupiter. However, as they got influenced by the Greek and the Etruscan, the triad changed with Jupiter, nagyapon si Jupiter, but being accompanied by his sister wife, Juno, and his daughter, Minerva. So ato ning ilailahon ang three main pantheons sa Roman mythology as well as the other major gods and goddesses sa Romance. So first we have Jupiter. Jupiter, which is the Roman counterpart of Zeus, has a symbol of a lightning bolt. He is considered as the god of sky and thunder. In fact, his literary name means sky father. Juno. Juno is the counterpart of Hera with a symbol of a peacock. So she is considered as the queen of gods, the Roman goddess of marriage and birth, a very loyal wife to Jupiter. While si Jupiter, siglag pangisda kauban sa sinaptan no, may pa si Hades or Pluto. Through her central role as the goddess of marriage, she also features as a goddess of vitality, eternal youth, fertility, and a protector of community. So next we have Minerva. So better known by her Greek name Athena, hence the name of the city of Athens. Her symbol is an owl and is called the goddess of wisdom. To bisan, nag-originate pa si Minerva sa Greek, still ni-appear siya in many Roman myths. O sana na ang katong sa story ni Medusa. I bet we all know the story already. Actually, makaana ta. Dinhi nga, she is the goddess of wisdom, pero dinhi napita maragbali lagi. I once looked up to her for being an epitome of an independent woman, but maybe like other gods, they easily get carried away by anger. They act impulsively when they get overwhelmed by emotions. But that's the gods for you. No, gibutan nila, that's the gods for you. So the fourth one, we have Apollo. I once saw these short videos on YouTube about Apollo, and one thing they can describe is that Apollo is like the god of everything. Truth, prophecy, music, dance, healing, and disease, poetry, and archery, diba? Daghan kaayo. But above all, he is the god of sun and light. He has a symbol of a lyre, and Apollo is actually considered as the strongest son of Jupiter or Zeus and the most handsome daw. But permisawi sa pag-ibig. He's the only Greek god nga wala na change ang name pag abot sa Roman. Next, we have Diana. Diana is the counterpart of the Greek god Artemis. Her symbol is the moon. She is the goddess of the hunt as well as of nature, birth, and the moon. He is Apollo's twin. According to legend, she was the one who brought out the moon every night. Ang size daw sa moon, magdepende sa iyang mood. Basta gamay ra ang buwan kay bad mood si Diana. Kung hayag ka ayaw niya dool, then definitely in a good mood. Next, we have Ceres. Her counterpart is the goddess Demeter. the second sister of Jupiter. She was the goddess of harvest and fertility, as well as marriage and women. Kung si Diana magdepende ang kadak-on sa moon or kagamyon sa moon magdepende sa iyang mood. Kasiri sad kay sa crops sad siya. Kung dili siya happy, mangalaya ang mga crops. Just like katong time nga, giabduct iyang daughter. Next, we have Vesta, the counterpart of Hestia. She is the last sister of Jupiter, Juno, and Neptune. According to legend, should she said that should the flame go out, she'd get terribly angry and Rome would be left with no protection. So this is the reason why na ay mga Vestal virgins, because they keep the flame burning, protecting the city of Rome. And if paong na siya, then it would be chaos. No, maglagot siya. Next, we have Vulcan. He is the god of blacksmiths. He has the symbol of a hammer. He is the counterpart of Hephaestus. So, Vulcan is the god of deserts and volcanoes. From the name itself, Vulcan, from Latin volcanus, where we get the word volcano. Next, we have Mars, the counterpart of Ares. He is known as the god of war, and his symbol is a spear. So Mars is where we get the words martial, like in martial arts, diba? It's a physical activity that's also very important, especially for defense. Even the month March was named after him because this is when Romans would conduct military campaigns. So sila may magkuyog mostly sa painting with Venus. And the 10th one, we have Mercury. Mercury is the counterpart of Hermes. That corresponds again with a planet in the solar system. So he is the Greek messenger of the gods. So as if he wasn't busy enough, he also guides souls to the underworld. So matabang po ni Pluto. Pluto is the counterpart of Hades. So to help him get around, Mercury is equipped with flying sandals called Talaria that makes him as quick as the quickest bird. So kung kita mo ka ng Hercules, katong Disney ng Hercules, dito si Hermes is, igipakita dito si Hermes and he has these sandals nga makalupad, and yes, he is very quick and speedy. Next, we have Venus. So, Venus is the goddess of love. She has a planet named after her, among all other things as well. So, she is the counterpart of the Greek goddess Aphrodite. And the last one, we have Neptune, which is the counterpart of the Greek god Poseidon, one of the brothers of Jupiter and Pluto. So his symbol is a trident or a dolphin, and he is considered as the god of the sea. The Romans also thought of Neptune as the god of horses and was the patron god of horse racing. For that reason, he is often depicted with horses or with giant seahorses pulling his sea chariot. So now let's look at the basic differences of Roman Greek. So, usa din he is ang time period. So, Iliad distributed 700 years before the Roman civilization, while ang sa Roman gods came 1,000 years after the Greeks. Kaya diba, ang Romans, they went to conquer the Mediterranean, and dito na nila na-discover ang Greeks. Dito na sila na come in contact, and dito na nila na-start og imitate ang mga culture, especially the gods and goddesses. So, mas nag-una jud ang Greek. Ang gods and goddesses agree. We have another one, actions of mortals and gods. So, in the Greeks, it is individualistic. Actions of the individual were more were of more consequences than actions of the group. So more on individual, while in the Roman gods it's more of a unified. In the Greek gods, each cities have their own uh, gods or goddesses nga gi worship, gi honor. However, in the Roman gods, it is unified and not individualistic. Next, we have revered traits. Creativity more important than physical works. They revered the poet. So, Greek gods or the Greek mythology is more on literary, on literature. And however, in the Roman gods, focused on actions rather than words. They revered the warrior as sacred. So, ang ilang pod gi Tagalog importance is ang actions rather than sa kanang rather than words or rather than the literature or any uh, writings, and they think that uh, war or being a warrior is much more sacred. Next is the physical forms. Greek gods had beautiful bodies where gorgeous muscles, eyes, and hair would enhance their looks. So sa Greek gods, sa Greek mythology is gi-emphasize jud ang physical uh, physical form sa usa ka uh, gods or goddesses. However, in the Roman mythology, gods did not have a physical appearance, represented only in the imagination of the people. So, nagdepende na sa mga tao kung unsaon nila, kung unsay tan-aw nila ani nga gods or goddesses. Unlike sa kanang Greek mythology nga gi-describe gyud siya. And that would be the end of my discussion, which is the pantheons and their counterparts of, the Roman pantheons and their counterparts. Thank you so much.